Something is happening to the modern mind, and it is happening quietly. You wake up, reach for your phone, and instantly 1,000 voices compete for control of your attention. Outrage, fear, comparison, noise. Before you even stand up, the world has already stepped inside your head. Most people don't notice the invasion. They just feel the symptoms. The anxiety that appears without warning, the anger that erupts too quickly, the constant pressure to be productive, impressive, flawless. Today, the battlefield is not outside. It is internal, and the enemy is anything that hijacks your judgment. The ancient Stoics knew this long before the age of algorithms. They taught that the world can shake your circumstances, but it cannot touch the space where your decisions are made. That inner space is the last territory that belongs entirely to you. Marcus Aurelius called it the Inner Citadel, a mental stronghold built not to escape reality, but to withstand it. The citadel is not fantasy or poetry. It is the architecture of a mind that refuses to be ruled by chaos. According to Marcus Aurelius, your mind will take the shape of whatever you dwell on. In a culture engineered to pull your attention in every direction, this becomes a warning and a responsibility. If you do not choose the shape of your mind, someone else will choose it for you. Modern thinkers echo the same insight. According to the Stoic emperor, the world is full of noise, but the mind need not be. This is the essence of the inner citadel. Not silence, but sovereignty. Not withdrawal, but clarity. It is the ability to remain steady while everything around you accelerates. You arrived at the Stoic Lighthouse, where ancient wisdom guides modern minds toward resilience and peace. If this message already speaks to something inside you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Each action helps this philosophy travel to someone who needs it as much as you do. Today, you will uncover what the inner citadel truly is, why your mind is under constant pressure, and how the Stoics engineered a fortress stronger than any external protection. By the end of this journey, you will realize something profoundly liberating. The world does not need to become easier. You only need to reclaim the one place that was always yours. Number 1, the refuge of the soul, what the inner citadel really is. Modern life convinces us that safety comes from the outside, a steady job, a predictable routine, the approval of others. Yet every one of these pillars can crumble in an instant. Companies collapse without warning, relationships shift overnight, and circumstances turn faster than we can adapt. People try to build security by controlling the world around them. But the Stoics saw the flaw in this centuries before modern psychology confirmed it. External defenses are fragile because the external world never stays still. Real protection must come from something the world cannot touch. This is where the concept of the inner citadel begins. The inner citadel is not a fantasy or a spiritual escape. It is the internal command center where judgment is formed and meaning is decided. Marcus Aurelius understood this more deeply than any emperor before him. He faced plagues, betrayals, endless responsibility, and the weight of ruling the largest empire on earth. Yet his writings focus not on controlling Rome, but on controlling his own mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Your mind will take the shape of whatever you dwell on." This single insight is the blueprint of the inner citadel. Whatever thoughts you allow inside will become the architecture of your character. The Stoics located this stronghold in the hegemonikon, the ruling faculty. It is where perception becomes judgment and judgment becomes action. Everything outside this space is unstable. Your reputation can shift, your possessions can vanish, your body can weaken, but your judgment remains sovereign unless you surrender that power. Zeno emphasized that freedom does not come from controlling events, but from mastering your response to them. This is not passive acceptance. It is an expression of inner authority. When your evaluations are disciplined, external chaos loses its ability to dictate your emotional state. Long before the Stoics, Socrates taught an idea that prepared the ground for this philosophy. Socrates taught, no evil can happen to a good man. He never meant misfortune would spare you. He meant external events cannot corrupt a soul fortified by virtue. The Stoics expanded on this, revealing that a well-governed mind is untouchable, even when life becomes turbulent. The person who cultivates inner strength carries stability everywhere. The person who relies on the world for stability is shaken by every change. The same principle echoes across modern psychology. William B. Irvine observed that tranquility does not come from controlling circumstances, but from controlling interpretation. William B. Irvine wrote, "Events don't disturb us. Our reactions do. This is not a denial of emotion, it is a recognition that emotion emerges from perception. When perception is undisciplined, emotion becomes unstable. When perception is trained, emotion becomes an ally rather than a threat. Strength is not the absence of discomfort. Strength is the ability to choose your stance within discomfort." Chrysippus, the architect who systematized Stoicism, believed the mind must be exercised with the same rigor as an athlete trains the body. Chrysippus wrote, "Education is the preparation of the soul for life. Every moment of reflection, every pause before reacting, every refusal to let anger or fear dictate your behavior places another brick in the citadel. This fortress is built through repetition, self-examination, and unwavering commitment to clarity." The Stoic emperor, a modern interpreter of ancient discipline, emphasizes that the citadel is made not from walls, but from principles. The Stoic emperor noted, "Build your mind so strong that nothing outside of it can disturb the peace inside of it." This does not mean retreating from the world. It means engaging with the world from a position of stability rather than vulnerability. The citadel allows you to stand in chaos without absorbing chaos, to face noise without letting noise shape you, to experience difficulty without letting difficulty define you. To understand the inner citadel is to understand this truth. You cannot create a life so secure that nothing will challenge you, but you can create a mind so trained that nothing can break you. The citadel is not a place you visit. It is a structure you inhabit. It is the home of your judgments, the guardian of your peace, the foundation of your identity. On the days when life overwhelms you, when the world feels hostile, when your confidence shakes, this is the one place where your strength remains untouched. Number 2. The battleground within. Why your mind is constantly under attack. If the inner citadel is meant to be unbreakable, why does the modern person feel invaded so easily? Why does a single comment derail our mood, a single mistake ruin our confidence, or a single headline provoke fear? The Stoics would say it is not because the world has grown more dangerous, but because our mental defenses have weakened. We live in an age of abundance, yet our minds have never been more exposed. For the Stoics, the real threat was never the external event. The real threat was the interpretation that followed. They understood that the mind can be conquered from the outside only when it is untrained on the inside. Every day, your mind is bombarded by two powerful forces. The first is the world itself. Deadlines, bills, conflicts, expectations, uncertainty. These pressures are unavoidable. They belong to the human experience, yet none of them inherently carry emotional weight. A traffic jam is only cars on the road. A harsh comment is only words in the air. A financial setback is only a shift in circumstance. These events are raw material, not meaning. They are neutral until you give them narrative. The Stoics warned that the second force is the far more dangerous one. It is the enemy inside the gates, your judgments, your assumptions, your emotional reflexes. Epictetus reminded his students that the world does not disturb you. Epictetus taught, "It is not things that trouble us, but the opinions we have about them." When a problem appears, your judgment rushes in first. It labels the event as catastrophic, unfair, humiliating, or threatening. That judgment opens the gate. That judgment invites distress to enter. The external event becomes an internal storm because your mind grants it power. It is not the noise outside that invades you. It is your unguarded response that lets the noise take command. What makes this more dangerous today is the design of modern society. We live in a culture engineered to provoke reaction. Social media platforms reward outrage, not reflection. News cycles amplify fear, not perspective. Technology feeds you interruptions optimized for addiction rather than clarity. Your attention is not just valuable, it is a product. And the more reactive you become, the easier you are to manipulate. The Stoics could not have predicted smartphones, but they understood the principle behind them. When you surrender awareness, you surrender autonomy. William B. Irvine described this dynamic with striking precision. William B. Irvine wrote, "The goal is not to eliminate unpleasant events, but to prevent them from becoming internal catastrophes." Most suffering is not caused by the event itself, but by the story the mind attaches to it. A delay becomes a disaster. A setback becomes an identity crisis. A disagreement becomes a personal attack. The inner enemy is not the experience, but the exaggeration. And the exaggeration is always optional. Even in ancient times, thinkers warned about the speed of judgment. Pythagoras encouraged silence as discipline, not for politeness, but for clarity. A mind that reacts instantly is a mind easily captured. A mind that pauses becomes a mind that chooses. The Stoics believed that awareness is the first line of defense. You cannot stop every external blow, but you can stop yourself from amplifying it into emotional chaos. Modern voices echo this same threat in our time. The Stoic emperor offered a warning that feels almost prophetic in the digital age. The Stoic emperor wrote, "Guard your mind as if the world is trying to steal it, because it is. The world competes for your inner space, but only you decide what enters. Only you decide what grows. Only you decide what reaches the throne of judgment." This is why the Stoics insisted that the greatest battles you will ever fight are not fought in public, but within your own perception. The attack is constant because life is constant. But the chaos only enters when the gatekeeper falls asleep. A disciplined mind still experiences pain, frustration, disappointment, and loss, but it refuses to let those experiences dictate its identity or dominate its inner world. Understanding this battleground is the first step toward defending it. The enemy is not the world. The enemy is the meaning you attach to the world without reflection. Once you recognize this, every moment becomes an opportunity to reclaim sovereignty. The mind that learns to observe before interpreting becomes unconquerable. The mind that reacts without awareness becomes vulnerable to everything. Number 3. Building the fortress, the 3 tools of the Stoic architect. A fortress is not built through hope or desire. It is built through discipline, structure, and repeated training. The Stoics understood that the mind does not become strong by accident. Strength is engineered. Resilience is the result of deliberate practice. And the inner citadel, the sovereign center of your life, grows only through tools that shape how you think, how you judge, and how you respond. These tools are not abstract theories. They are practical methods used by emperors, slaves, warriors, teachers, and philosophers for more than 2,000 years. When applied consistently, they convert your mind from a battlefield into a command center. The first tool is the gatekeeper, the discipline of assent. Every thought, every impression, every flash of emotion is like someone knocking at the gates of your city. Most people open the gates immediately. A fear appears, and they accept it as truth. An insult arrives, and they internalize it. A worry rises, and they surrender. The Stoics insisted that nothing should enter the mind without interrogation. Epictetus reminded his students that impressions are not reality. They are only first drafts of interpretation. Epictetus wrote, "Test every impression, do not let it enter unchallenged." To use this tool, you observe each thought and ask, is this a fact or a judgment? Is this under my control or outside it? Does this impression help me act with clarity, or does it weaken my mind? If it weakens you, the gate remains closed. This is not suppression, it is discernment. A trained mind is not a mind that feels nothing. It is a mind that refuses to be ruled by impulses. The second tool is the watchtower, also known as the view from above. When life feels overwhelming and problems seem too large to face, the Stoics used a technique that expanded perspective to dissolve emotional distortion. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. He imagined rising above himself, above his city, above the earth, seeing everything from a height where ego dissolves and perspective sharpens. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Consider how small you are and how short-lived and how insignificant the things that trouble you." This tool is not meant to diminish your life, but to liberate it. When seen from a higher vantage point, the problems that once felt crushing reveal their true scale. They shrink. They lose their weaponized emotional impact. The watchtower frees you from claustrophobic thinking. It creates space between stimulus and response. It gives you the ability to move from reaction to reason, and in that space, the citadel strengthens. The third tool is the stress test, the practice of voluntary discomfort. A fortress that is never tested grows weak. Walls that never face pressure develop cracks. The Stoics believed the same about the mind. Comfort is pleasant, but it softens the very qualities required to navigate adversity. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men of his time, deliberately practiced living with less, exposing himself to poverty, hunger, cold, and hardship. Seneca wrote, "Set aside days for poverty, so you may learn to fear it less." This practice was not self-punishment, it was liberation. When you prove repeatedly that you can endure difficulty willingly, uninvited difficulty loses its ability to intimidate you. You become anti-fragile. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, a modern thinker, describes anti-fragility as the ability to grow stronger under pressure. Stoicism taught this centuries earlier. Every cold shower, every fast, every disciplined act of restraint is not about suffering. It is about training the citadel to stand firm, no matter what storms arrive. Together, these three tools form the blueprint of the Stoic mind. The gatekeeper refines perception. The watchtower expands perspective. The stress test fortifies resilience. Each tool shapes a different part of the fortress, and each strengthens the others. When combined, they create a mind prepared not just to survive chaos, but to use chaos as training. Chrysippus believed that philosophy is not theory, but exercise. Chrysippus insisted, "We become what we repeatedly do." The citadel is built brick by brick, choice by choice, moment by moment. And every time you apply one of these tools, the walls rise higher. The foundation grows stronger. The inner world becomes less vulnerable to the noise outside. A strong mind is not a gift. It is a construction project. And the person who commits to building their citadel discovers something extraordinary. The world no longer has the power to define their peace. They carry that peace within themselves. Number 4, life inside the walls. The freedom and power of a fortified mind. To build the inner citadel is one achievement. To live inside it is another. Many people imagine that inner strength feels like invulnerability or emotional numbness, but the Stoics painted a very different picture. Life inside the citadel is not a life without storms. It is a life where the storms lose the ability to break you. It is a shift from fragility to resilience, from reactivity to clarity. When you inhabit the citadel, the world does not become easier. You become harder to disturb. The first transformation is calm under pressure. This calm is not an emotional silence forced by suppression. It is the natural stillness that emerges when your judgments no longer run wild. Problems continue to appear. Deadlines still demand attention. People will misunderstand you, disappoint you, or challenge you. Yet your inner posture changes. Instead of collapsing into panic, your mind holds steady. Seneca described this mental climate with a powerful image. Seneca wrote, "The mind of the wise is like the calm above the clouds. The storms rage below, but the air above the storm remains clear, quiet, untouched." This is the atmosphere of the citadel. The second transformation is emotional resilience. Pain still hurts, loss still wounds, failure still stings. But these experiences no longer turn into identity. They no longer spiral into self-destruction. You recover faster. You stand up more quickly. You no longer drown in moments that once consumed you. Emotional resilience is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to feel deeply without being carried away. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than anyone living in a position of immense power and constant pressure. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not let the force of an impression carry you away." Inside the citadel, you recognize that impressions arrive automatically, but your ascent is optional. You feel the emotion, but you do not become the emotion. The third transformation is freedom from external validation. Modern America teaches people to measure themselves through numbers, followers, bonuses, likes, salaries, applause. These metrics are addictive, unstable, and socially contagious. They create dependence on a world that changes every second. But the Stoics taught that the worth of a person is not determined by the audience. Musonius Rufus offered a crucial reminder. Musonius Rufus taught, "Your conscience is your true audience." Inside the citadel, you begin to live for your own judgment, not the judgment of others. Integrity replaces approval. Principles replace popularity. You become the one who decides your worth. No crowd can give you what they never had the authority to define. A fortified mind also gains something unexpected: clarity. When the noise of reactive thought fades, you see life more accurately. You see what matters and what does not. You understand which battles are worthy and which are distractions. The Stoics believed that clarity is the reward for discipline. The modern writer known as the Daily Stoic, Ryan Holiday, echoes this sentiment. Ryan Holiday noted, "The goal is not invincibility, it is anti-fragility. You do not avoid difficulty, you grow from it. Every challenge becomes a sharpening stone. Every setback becomes part of your training." And perhaps the greatest transformation is something almost impossible to describe until you feel it yourself. It is the moment you realize that peace is no longer dependent on circumstances. You stop waiting for the world to quiet down. You stop depending on people to behave a certain way. You stop expecting life to fit your script. Peace becomes something you generate, not something you pursue. Inside the citadel, nothing outside determines your inner weather. You become the calm in your own storm, the anchor in your own chaos, the ruler of your own inner world. This does not remove the unpredictability of life. It removes its ability to dominate your mind. Once you experience this shift, you understand why the Stoics viewed the citadel not as poetry, but as power. The journey through the inner citadel reveals something most people never discover about themselves. Strength is not inherited. Peace is not gifted. Clarity is not found. All of these are built. The world will continue to be unpredictable. People will continue to act according to their nature, not your expectations. Circumstances will rise and fall like shifting tides. But none of these forces can reach the space you have now learned to defend. The citadel does not promise a life without storms. It promises a mind that no storm can overthrow. And once you understand that this power was always inside you, everything begins to change. Life inside the citadel is not withdrawal. It is participation from a place of stability. You act with purpose, not panic. You respond with clarity, not impulse. You endure difficulty without letting it rewrite your identity. You become someone who is not shaped by the world, but someone who chooses how to shape your inner world. This is the essence of Stoic resilience, and it remains as practical in modern America as it was in ancient Rome. If this video helped you understand your own mind in a new way, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us which tool you plan to work on first, or what challenge in your life now looks different through the lens of the Citadel. And if you found value in this message, consider liking the video, subscribing to the Stoic Lighthouse, and sharing this with someone who needs strength more than comfort today. Before we close, here is a glimpse of what is coming next. In our next video, we explore one of history's most troubling moral crossroads, a moment where loyalty, fear, purpose, and betrayal collided in a way that still echoes through the centuries. It is a story that forces us to ask a question few people ever dare to examine honestly. When pushed to the edge, what would you have done? Prepare yourself for a confrontation between human weakness and Stoic judgment that may change how you see moral courage forever. To bring this journey home, we end with a line that captures the heart of everything you have built here. William Ernest Henley wrote, "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." See you in the next video.